Hey, I'm Rob Gantt with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I'm here today with two of my teammates, Roger Lee for the Summerville Journal Scene, Rickey Dennis with the Berkeley Independent. He covers the Berkeley Stags for us. Week 8 is in the books. Week 9 is on the way. Roger, we always make you wait. Today, we're not going to make you wait since you're a Georgia fan. Things are going well for you. We feel like we'll just let you lead off the broadcast. So tell us a little bit about what happened on your side of the fence, and then kind of tell us what's coming up.
Well, had the big rivalry game between Fort Dorchester and Ashley Ridge. Went as most folks had expected. I think some Ashley Ridge folks thought it'd be a little closer, but Fort Dorchester went through them 70-7. Another big night for DeCarrion Joyner. Had more than 100 rushing yards, more than 100 passing yards. But really, I think the story there this week was with the Fort defense. I mean, they were just tough. They held Ashley Ridge to negative yardage on 4 of their first 8 drives of the first half, and that just put Ashley Ridge in a hole. Ashley Ridge lost their starting running back, Cunningham, who has been a force this year. He is okay. They released him from the hospital later that night. He got back and was on the sidelines for that game. We'll see when he gets to return. He's a junior, so at least even if he can't make it back this year, which I suspect it sounds like he'll be okay for part of this season, but we don't know when he's going to be back. So, but anyway, Devon Gilmore had 8 tackles and a sack for Fort Dorchester. Lineman James Middleton recovered a fumble that led to a touchdown early on. Dazjon Casto. Now, I owe Dazjon an apology, I think, at least once in the past. And I know in another publication in a daily paper got part of his name wrong. That's for anybody that wants clarification on Dazjon's name. It's Dazjon Casto. I talked to him after the game.
Okay.
But anyway, that's how we're going to spell that from now on. All right. He had a 35-yard interception. He had an interception return at 35 yards for a touchdown. That's his 4th interception of the year. He's got 2 touchdowns. Had a 3rd interception that he made it to the end zone on, but it was called back on a penalty. So fabulous year for that guy. Pretty much highlights for Ashley Ridge. Quarterback Matt Duncan connected with fullback Josh Sharrow, Sharro, for their sole touchdown. It's good to see the fullback get in there and make a catch. At least he has that for the season. Fort kickers Colby Shelton and Stephen Heron both hit 5 PAT kicks. So I think not that long ago I was talking about how I wasn't sure what the Fort kicking game was, if that was going to be a strength going into the playoffs. It looks like it might be. So that's a good thing.
They seem to be doing everything right now in all phases.
Yeah, I mean, really watching that game, and I think if you talk to the Ashford coaches, they tell you the same thing. They played a pretty good game. I mean, not too many mistakes. Even when the backups were in, they did a lot of clock control and ran the ball a lot. But their guys are moving the ball regardless of who's in. So
yeah, they're good.
Also in our area, Summerville went to James Island, pulled out a 45-30 win. Big night for Olin McCurry. He had 4 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. They also pulled a fake field goal. He's the holder on field goal attempts, and so he threw a pass to Andre Banks for a touchdown. Andre Banks finished with 2 touchdown receptions. Shaq Davis had a touchdown reception. Daryl Hancock rushed for 77 yards and a touchdown. Good news for the Greenway fans. The Greenway defense continues to look really strong on the defense side, as well as Fort Dorchester. So they had 4 interceptions in that game and a fumble recovery. Obviously, that had a huge impact on the game. Yeah. Corey Hewitt and Derek Larry both picked off 2 passes. Jimmy Bracey had the fumble recovery for Summerville. Those guys are, I think it's 5-0, but whatever it is, definitely undefeated in region play. Yeah. They've got, let's see, they're hosting Stratford at Memorial Stadium Friday for a homecoming game. Stratford's struggling, so that's one that Summerville should be able to manage, but you never know. Stratford's going to be looking to get that win. So, West Ashley, I should have mentioned before, they are going to, Fort Dorchester. I should have mentioned earlier, they're going to West Ashley Friday night for another big region game for them. They're 8-0 on the season. It's looking like we're going to have 2 undefeated teams in the region matching up the last week of the season in Summerville and Fort for the region championship. That's always exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that will be exciting. I don't know how it's actually going to turn out. I mean, for Summerville's perspective, but On paper, it does appear to be an
Yeah, yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's why they line them up, man. Things happen. As you know, teams get upset. One more thing, though, that I will mention before I turn it back over to you, Rob. Pinewood suffered a 10-point loss to Lawrence Manning, so they'll be looking to get back on track against Hammond this week. Hammond's one of those tough Skeeza teams year in, year out, I believe. I know they've had some good years for sure. So, Pinewood will be at home, but they've got another tough contest coming up.
All right, over in Berkeley County this past Friday, seemed like the common thread was everybody just getting blown out. Not my team. Sometimes my team did the damage. Sometimes they took it on the chin. Cane Bay 63-14 over Stahl. Let's play a little true or false. Ricky, true or false? You should kick the ball to Chris Copeland.
Very false.
False. Chris Copeland, 2 touchdown returns for the Cobras. He also threw a touchdown pass and ran for 2 more. He accounted for 5. Chris Copeland is an amazing athlete for the Cobras. He pretty much did it all, and everybody got on the field and participated. So the Cobras had a fun night, 63-14. Timberland 47-25 winners over Manning. Roger Gibbs 140 yards rushing with a touchdown. He caught a touchdown pass from Jaquez Mitchell. Johnson Thomas ran in 2 touchdowns, same with Josh Hill. Mitchell also ran one in. Timberland closing in on another region championship. They're out of the region this week against Franklin Christian, some private school from Rock Hill that's going to get drilled. The Wolves are going to coast in that one. Then the following week, Timberland will take on Bishop England for all the marbles in the region. That should be a fun one, just like Ford and Summerville. Cross knocked off Bethune-Bowman. It was the Nate Walker show again. 231 yards rushing for Nate. He scored 3 touchdowns. I know at least 1 or 2 were just like long runs where he's dragging people with him to the end zone. Huge performance there. Oh, the defense for Cross. Great effort by them. That's their 3rd shutout of the year. Denario Smalls is the defensive coordinator, and he seems to have them playing pretty well on that side of the ball and putting them in the right positions to make plays. Kendall Gaddis took an interception back for the Trojans, so they're looking pretty good. Another score, Wando knocked off Goose Creek 38-7. The Warriors were pretty balanced. They could run at will, they could throw at will. Goose Creek didn't help itself, had several turnovers. Lost the football game 38-7. Koran Suber was the only person who scored a touchdown for Goose Creek. And the game I saw on Friday, West Ashley coasted 62-14 over Stratford. The Knights, like I said, we've talked about, they just have struggles tackling people. And when you're on the sideline, you look at it with your own eyes, you can see it. They just don't have the people out there to stop people. I mean, that's just the truth. In high school football, sometimes it's that way. You go through a run of huge kids, and sometimes you go through a run of small kids, and that's just kind of the way it is. I do want to mention something, and it's really impressive. The Stratford student section, no matter what the score is, no matter what the record is, the Stratford student section shows up to the games, and it's rows deep, and they have a lot of energy throughout the game, no matter what the score is. And I think, if you're a member of that student section, you should look in the mirror and pat yourself on the back, because you've gone out there and supported the team when the team's having a bad year. I think Stratford's won just 1 game. So, I want to give them a shout out, because I was really impressed at just how they keep turning out and keep supporting that team. And, I think it probably means a lot to the kids that are out there playing. They're doing the best they can. And, it means a lot to them to have the student section out there playing. I mean, I know the band's also pretty good for Stratford too. Another game, Bishop England 29-7. The Bishops did their part to set up a winner-take-all region championship matchup in 2 weeks by beating Hanahan 29-7. Leo Albano, he's a magician with the ball for Bishop England. He's their quarterback. He accounted for, I don't know, I'm going to say around 200 or 300 yards total offense. And he led the Bishops to a win 29-7. One other score, the defending 8-man champions, who took care of business, unlike my boys in Clemson, they knocked off St. John's Christian 64-14. Really, St. John's Christian just ran into a buzzsaw, and sometimes that happens. It's just kind of the way it is. This week, Goose Creek is at home against James Island. It's kind of a must-win situation for the Gators. You want to have some confidence going into that rival matchup the last week of the season against Stratford, which is actually the bigger matchup because the winner of that game, it looks like, will be the one that advances to the playoffs. So the Gators trying to get right this weekend against James Island, and historically they have fared very well. I think it's at least 11 or 12 or 13 in a row over James Island. I don't have the number right in front of me. As I mentioned earlier, Timberland hosts Franklin Christian. Timberland's just going to it's going to be rough for Franklin Christian. Timberland will have a lot of fun. They'll clear the benches. Guys you've never heard of will score touchdowns. Cross is taking on Scotts Branch. Cross is playing well, but Scotts Branch beat St. John's 8-7. And St. John's has been having a good season, and Scotts Branch kind of hung in there with them and actually beat them this past Friday. So I'm intrigued to see how that turns out. Maybe Scotts Branch is better than they have been. Cross historically has done a pretty good job against Scotts Branch. We'll just have to see how Nate Walker and the boys do. Northwood is at home against Hilton Head Prep. Chargers lost again this past weekend. They're also a squad with just one win, trying to make the most of the last couple weeks of the regular season. All four of those matchups I just mentioned, they're all Berkeley, home teams. My teams are at home. Three of my squads are away. Stratford is at Summerville. We talked a little bit about Stratford's defense struggling. I've seen Summerville in person. They've got too many weapons. I would look for Summerville to be able to just control the game and put up as many points almost as it wants to. But Stratford will play hard, and those guys will coach hard, and we'll see if maybe there's an upset in the making. It has happened recently. Cane Bay, a big matchup. The Cobras hit the road to go to Beaufort. One of your teams just had to deal with Beaufort. You can tell us more about that in a second. If Cane Bay can win that game, it'll set up a winner-take-all for the region championship next week against Berkeley. And Hanahan will end its regular season at Lake Marion. Look for the Hawks to have a big night. If Quincy Mitchell is healthy, the running back for the Hawks, he'll have a big game against Lake Marion. I saw Lake Marion earlier. Just not a whole lot of resistance being put up by the defense, so Hanahan should end the regular season on a high note. The Hawks will be off in week 10. They have a bye week. As we just mentioned, Rickey, you had a chance to kind of follow Berkeley and Beaufort. Tell us how that turned out, and then tell us what the Stags have ahead of them.
Sure. Well, the game turned out exactly the way that Berkeley wanted it to turn out after making that long ride out there to an undefeated Beaufort, which proved to be a pretty tough competition. The Stags were able to get that win and give Beaufort their first loss of the season and obviously their first region loss as well. So Berkeley won the game 23-14. Berkeley is doing very well this season. Again, once you get into region play, you don't want to lose any region games if you can help it at all. That makes it a lot more difficult to get the championship. But they handled business and took care of things out there in the island. One thing I do want to mention is that as typical, it can be typical of Berkeley, their offense was pretty shaky starting out. It took them a while to get things going. It was tied at halftime. But if you watch the Stags long enough, you'll know that you always, no matter how much they're struggling, you know that eventually there's going to be that key playmaking play by one of their quick running backs, and it's going to get things going. So after a tie score at halftime, DJ Chisholm did kind of make that breakthrough play for the Stags to get them, and they kind of coasted it to the end. So Keyshawn Wicks, DJ Chisholm, Tate McMurray, who was injured last year, the kicker last game, came back and scored a field goal for the Stags to give them that 23. So it's good to see that one of my teams is making field goals this year. So that's definitely.
Which other team are you referring to, sir?
We're not going to make any names, but some of these.
They did actually win Saturday. South Carolina.
They did win Saturday, but
I mean, it's just Tennessee. Rogers team beat Tennessee 41-0.
Yeah, whatever.
But hey, whatever. Okay.
Anyway,
carry on.
So offensively, the Stags were able to get going. Defensively, they held Beaufort to 60 yards rushing, which is pretty good for Berkeley. It's worth noting that each year, since again Randy Robinson is only in his second year there, but they've allowed less and less points offensively on the defensive side. So Berkeley's really improving defensively and kind of maintaining these teams that have a pretty good running game. So leaders on the defense: Trey Morrison, Jake Dunn, Deshaun Milligan, and I'm sure there's some others there, but those are some three who led in tackles for Berkeley. So coming up, the Stags are going to host Carleton County. Carleton County is 3-5 and 1-2 in the region, so I would expect that Berkeley, especially being at home, would be able to take care of business. And if they win, like you mentioned, Cane Bay, if they win that game, that was set up for a really, really exciting matchup between Berkeley and Cane Bay for that region championship this coming next week. So I would expect Berkeley to handle business and win that game. Carleton County does have a good and solid quarterback, Craig Gantt, a very athletic guy who can really throw the football, so it'd be interesting to see how Berkeley kind of handles that and maintains and breaks up those passing lanes. But all things considered, it's a game that I'm sure that the Stags expect to win, and looking forward to Cane Bay to a big game and hopefully win that region game.
I think the big question is, where will they be mentally? You know, they've got the big matchup with Cane Bay coming up, and no matter what, that probably will decide the region championship, because I believe, you know, they could lose to Carleton County but then beat Cane Bay and still win the region championship. Right. The thing is, that's a huge game. It's a rival game. Last year was a classic. So is Randy or Coach Robinson worried at all about where Berkeley might be inside its head, you know?
Well, I didn't ask him that specifically. Of course, anytime you mention the next game, the coach's response is, well, we're focused on, you know, the game coming up. So gotten hit me with that, you know, but we're preparing for Carleton County right now. But, you know, if you know coaches, you know that they're thinking about that, and that's in their minds. If you look back to their win against Summerville this season, right after they played Summerville, they went up to Hand-in-Hand, and it was obvious that they were still hyped up off of that big win. So hopefully, with the Stags, you know, having this much success, they're not, you know, allowing themselves to be too confident going there playing Cane Bay. Of course, they know that RJ is out, so maybe that is, you know, in their psyche as well. But if I'm them, I would hope that they're still, you know, pretty mellow and would, you know, bring everything they got to beat Cane Bay.
One other thing, Charleston Southern opened Big South play on Saturday. They went to Presbyterian. They ended up winning 7-0. Noah Schuler, a Stratford product, kind of bulled his way into the end zone from about 4 yards out after the defense got a fumble with like 4 minutes left to go in the game. The Buccaneers will be back at home Saturday at 6 p.m. They host Savannah State. Don't know a whole lot about the Tigers. I looked at the stat sheet. It looks like they've got some weapons. You know, but Charleston Southern has historically handled Savannah State. I think Charleston Southern leads at series 6-0. So the local guys will be out there on Saturday. You know, if Clemson and Carolinas are off, so you know you're looking for a game to go watch, Charleston Southern might be the place to go. 6 p.m. Bucks and Savannah State Tigers.